Great. Well, my name is Jacob Cochran, and I am a career coach here at the University of Northwestern. I do recognize some of your names, and hopefully, I was able to give you good advice when we met. And hopefully, today you can get some good advice from me as well. So, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things today, but we're going to be talking about mainly the kind of the must-haves with resumes, the tips for resumes, and then covering a little bit with cover letters and online profiles. Resumes are kind of the core of, when you have that, then the cover letter it's a little bit easier, and the online profiles certainly are as well. Um, my qualifications as a career coach, I spend a lot of time looking at resumes, cover letters, and online profiles. I do a lot of research to try and stay up to date on the most current trends, and I believe that I have done that. So now I am covering a lot of general information today for all students, but then there are specifics to different majors and careers and professions that would, that you can ask me about at the end, or you can set up a meeting and we can talk more about it. Just some quick facts, though, that do apply to all or most majors and careers here. First off, is that over 75% of large companies, so Fortune 500, et cetera, and a lot of mid-sized and small companies use applicant tracking systems known as ATSs in their hiring process. And you might be wondering, kind of, what is an ATS? Why does that matter? Why are you telling me this, Jacob? Well, this graphic will help me explain, and I'll put some information on here as well. But first off, when you apply, you're generally applying online. You submit your resume, your application. Sometimes it's in a PDF form. Sometimes you have to type things out. But what an applicant tracking system does is it takes all of those applications that look very different and are organized differently, and it tries to format them in a simple design for the hiring manager to read. So then it kind of takes all that information, puts in a simple design, and then the hiring manager can just go through and scroll through and look at this application, and the next one, and it's all formatted very similarly. And it does more than that too, and I'll get to that. But then they choose, from there, the candidates that they maybe want to take a closer look at, bring in for an interview. So that does not mean that they do not look at your resume. At some point, almost always, there's going to be somebody, if you get further along in the process, there will be somebody who looks at your resume and really looks at it. Does it look professional? Is the design good? Is it clear, understandable? But we're kind of, what that means is we're kind of making our resume for a couple different audiences. One is this applicant tracking system. One is the hiring manager. One might be HR even as well. Okay, and so the other things that this does, well, first off, when it goes through that system, the applicant tracking system, your application is read by artificial intelligence, AI, and hiring manager can actually go through and do some keyword searches. So if they are curious about, like, let's say you're applying to a job, an internship, a communications internship, and they want to see everybody who has had communication, has a communications degree, right? They could do a keyword search for that degree. There's also AI that is used to read that and can actually give scores and kind of rank your resume based off of inputs that the employer puts in. So basically all that means is we need to really focus on keywords, make sure that we're presenting yourselves in the best light. But even that AI can actually even read how much job experience you have, and how many years in this specific type of role, and it knows all of these different terms, and so there's just a lot that we need to think about when we're writing a resume, so that it doesn't get like kicked out by the applicant tracking system, so that it can read it easily. So we want to use terms that are easy for it to understand, rather than educational experience, just calling it education, and then listing your degree, and your verbs and your keywords, thinking about what is in the job description and tailoring it to that. Another thing that kind of can trip up an applicant tracking system, other than just the content, is the formatting. So we do want to consider our formatting when we are creating our resume. And so some tips along these lines: use vocabulary from the job posting, from the company's website, maybe from an informational interview. That will help you in the ranking and with any scoring that they do, and any keyword searches. As far as formatting goes, avoid columns if possible. So those fancy resumes with the sidebar, those can throw an applicant tracking system off. But those sometimes columns are okay, but headers and footers, you want to avoid using that header box and the footer box. You may actually have a header, which has your contact information, all of that, and just copy and paste that out of the header box and paste it onto just the general document. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, just anytime you're unsure about something, just know that you can meet with our office and I can go over this with you in more detail. But yeah, headers and footers, avoid those text boxes. So, putting a text box over here on the side, that's confusing, and tables can be confusing. So I'm not saying to always avoid these, but just general rule of thumb, try and avoid those when possible. And consider, when you're submitting an application, is this going to be read by a human, or am I uploading a PDF online to what appears to be a applicant tracking system? And oftentimes you can even tell because it'll be in the URL, like, oh, Workday is an applicant tracking system. So you should be able to recognize it a little bit, but you can always come in for help if you don't know. And then include as much relevant information as possible while still making it easy to read. And that's, what we'll kind of talk about for the rest of this here, relevant information and making it easy to read. So as far as the format of your resume, there's a couple different styles. Majority of hiring managers prefer the traditional kind of reverse chronological style. There's also the functional style, which is really good resume for people who have little to no work experience. So a lot of students will use that one. And then the CV is later on if you are going into higher ed. You can check that out. You can ask me more about it. But we're going to be focusing on the one that about 70% of hiring managers say they prefer. And then this is just a stat that's out there. Recruiters take an average of 6 seconds to scan a resume. I don't think that's actually necessarily accurate, but what that just tells us is it's really important to organize your information so it's easy to read with relevant information that they want to read. And so keeping some white space and good, just organization and structure on your resume. Some general facts about resumes. They should be 1 to 2 pages, typically one. 1 page is usually enough for current students or recent grads. It should accurately represent you, but it should also be very professional looking. I mentioned easy to understand, and it should be tailored to especially the jobs you really do want. You need to tailor it with changing out those keywords, making sure that you're including experiences that are more relevant. And then that traditional format that I mentioned, what that means is you're going to have different headings. Those can be in really any order. The one that most commonly is on the top is education, and then usually experience. But then you might have leadership, volunteer, a bunch of other things. And then you're going to list your experiences from most recent to least recent underneath those headings. So your most recent education experience to your least recent, your most recent work experience to your least recent, your most recent leadership to your least recent. And you are going to focus on your skills in your experiences, as opposed to the functional resume, which focuses on your skills and then lists your experiences. So there's a little bit of a different emphasis. This is focusing on where you've used your skills in your experiences. Some things that you should not do, and all these have little disclaimers with them, but don't include an objective statement, okay, unless you're going to make it highly personalized to the job that you're applying to, and you are, or you could do a professional statement or a summary statement. So there are alternatives to that. So if you want to do that, let me know. I can help you with that. Don't include color or pictures. You can include some color, but very minimal, nothing distracting. And my other disclaimer there is there are a couple exceptions to these rules. Design, like graphic design students or art students can get more creative, use more color, and marketing can sometimes as well. As far as pictures, generally you don't include pictures on a resume. The one exception that I know to that is pastoral resumes. So if you are applying to be a pastor, you can include a picture. Don't include this statement, references available upon request. That is outdated. You should have a separate document with your references that you can submit. And then don't include acronyms. And finally, don't make any spelling or grammar mistakes. For the acronyms, my disclaimer there is that you can include some very common acronyms if you need to, but generally speaking, you want to write them out. And make sure you get it reviewed for spelling grammar. Okay, I explained all of my disclaimers there. Purpose of a resume, I think that's pretty clear. It's to highlight your relevant skills and experiences. For employers, it's so that they can quickly view your qualifications. So we want to think about this way. We want to focus on the overlap, kind of this overlap of what the employer is looking for and what you have. Okay, you don't need to talk about all those experiences that they don't care about. So you mopped floors. They probably don't care about that. Don't list it. But did you handle transactions? Did you do customer service? Were you responsible for training in somebody? Those are things that they probably do care about. So how do you know what they want? How do you know what they care about? First, look at the job posting. That's a big hint. If you can't find if it doesn't have a lot of information on it, look at a similar job posting. Maybe just Google a similar one. Do an informational interview with somebody at the company or in a similar role. You can do research online, look at their website, and just use your personal knowledge or experience. That's where in your classes and talking to your professors or family or friends can be helpful. And just in general, every employer is looking for somebody who has good communication, leadership skills, a high social IQ, so interpersonal skills, good teamwork, and then critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Okay, so if you've never made a resume before, I just very briefly laid out the steps to do that. One is to brainstorm. So start by just brainstorming, making a master list. Even if you have made a resume before and you want to start from scratch, just follow these quick directions. They aren't quick when you actually do them, but the directions are quick. Brainstorm, make a master list of all of your experiences. Okay, then organize that in a way like by heading. Organize them underneath headings, and then underneath your experiences, make description phrases or action phrases that highlight your skills, your knowledge, your accomplishments that connect to that experience. Okay, and that's the simple version of what to do. And then you will refine that. You will pare it down for an application. You review it, make sure it's all good, revise it as needed, updating your words, your vocabulary, keywords, the tense you use, or if you got a new job, listing that on there. The sections you almost all should have on your resume should be a header, but not in that header box, but your header with your name, your phone number, and email. You do not need to include your address. Okay, that is optional. You can, but you do not need to. Education, you should include your university name, your degree or degrees, and anticipated graduation date. And then your experience, your relevant work experience, your relevant volunteer experience, whatever is relevant that you have for experience, include it on there. Some other sections you might include, licenses and certifications and more technical areas, leadership, community involvement, relevant coursework, extracurricular, research projects, skills, technical skills, awards, okay, your social security number. Okay, I'm just kidding on that last one. Do not put and last two actually. You don't have to put what you're wanting for like 401k or salary or social security number. Don't do that. Okay? But you can organize it in different ways. You can see these examples here. Education experience, education relevant coursework, education skills, awards, volunteer, international experience. So you'll find out there's a lot of gray in writing resumes. There's a lot you can do, and you have to make it relevant for you and understandable for the employer. Here's some examples of some action phrases that would go underneath your description. So they should be bulleted, and they're going to start with an action verb, and then they're going to include the skills, maybe some specific like software or information that talks about your accomplishments. So feel free to screenshot these if you're interested in it, and just kind of saving these. But you'll notice like collaborated, compiled, created, those are strong action verbs. So one of these is not a great phrase, okay? And you can probably pick it out, but one of these is not a strong phrase to include on your resume, and that is that saw multiple medical procedures and participated in some. Saw, not that strong, it doesn't really tell me your skills. Okay, you are good at watching things. It doesn't tell me any knowledge in there. Okay, you participated in what capacity? Did you, hold a scalpel? Did you cut them open? What did you do? And then multiple, like there's no quantifiable information there. Like that could be 2, that could be 100, so getting a little bit more specific there. So collaborated in person and over the internet using Zoom and Slack with directors from several departments to complete updates on the internal and external facing websites. That's great. Okay, we've got our action verb, we've got some skills in here, we've got specific software, and yeah, other great information. Got to keep rolling on. So I actually went backwards there, went the wrong direction. Okay, so that covers resumes in a nutshell. And just know we are here at Career Development. We have appointments you can make with us to go over this more in detail. And like I said, I'll try and leave some time for some questions here at the end. But cover letters, in brief, okay, what is a cover letter? First off, a cover letter is just something you send kind of with something to explain why you are sending it. So you're sending it with your resume to explain your rationale for sending it. So you can say like, oh, I'm sending this resume because I'm applying to this job and I believe I'm a good fit, right? That's kind of the short version of a cover letter. Your resume is objective. It's here's the experiences that I've had, here's the skills I've used, the software I've done, the awards I've gotten, the leadership I've had. So it's very objective, just kind of factual. A cover letter can be more subjective. This is where you show your connection to the company, your enthusiasm for the role. Let's say you are applying to be a I don't know, marketing assistant at Banana Republic, and you're saying, yeah, your connection to the company, you might talk about like, oh, I worked at Banana Republic when I was in high school, and so I've been connected to the company for a long time. My enthusiasm for the role comes from my passion for clothing and fashion and design and making that accessible to all people, right? And so that's subjective, right? That's factual to you, but it's not really provable, right? So cover letter can create more of a subjective statement. Well, working at Banana Republic in high school can probably be provable, but anyways, do you need one? Okay, that's a question that we get a lot. Do you need a cover letter? The answer I have is that it's risky not to have one. I've talked to hiring managers who say, yeah, I don't really read those unless I'm really having a tough time between 2 individuals. Or others that tell me, yeah, I try and read those as much as possible. And then others who say, I don't even read them, but I look at them to see how professional they look. They're like, I don't really read them for content, but I look for spelling and grammar errors because all of that tells me what type of employee I'm going to get. So I think it's risky not to have one, but you do want to make sure it is top notch. A cover letter, though, can demonstrate your interest, can go beyond your resume, and maybe even provide some examples of things that aren't really displayed in your resume that you really want them to know, or experiences, that you want them to know. Like, oh yeah, I entered in the store when I was 7 years old, and my mind was blown. And ever since, I've wanted to work at Toys R Us. RIP. Are they still Toys R Us? Are they still a thing? But yeah, anyways, you want to have this all reviewed for consistency. Are you using the same formatting throughout for relevancy? Does it all relate to the job you're applying to? Design, is there enough white space? Is there a balance? Does it look good? Professional, spelling and grammar, and then make sure you update your tenses. So if something was a job that you were currently in before, but you are not anymore, switch things to past tense. If you are, update the dates, include any new information you need on there. So, and then save each copy separately of your resume and cover letter with your last name, first name, and the company that it's for. So Cochran, Jacob, Northwestern resume, Cochran, Jacob, Northwestern cover letter. So real quick, I will cover on some networking and online profiles. As far as cover letters go too, we have a handout that I will show you here that I think is super helpful in working in cover letters. So networking, first off, 70 to 85% of all jobs are found through networking. So I highly encourage you to engage in networking. You can do that on Handshake and on LinkedIn. For these online profiles, you need to have a professional, or what I would suggest having for basics would be a professional profile photo. We just offered those free headshots yesterday. You'll get those in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, you can either have no photo or just take a decent one with your iPhone or something like that. But education, you want to include your degree, your school on there, and then your experience, any relevant work experience. So it's very similar to a resume. If you want to go more in depth on LinkedIn, you can include an about section with your professional summary. This can kind of be like a general cover letter showing your enthusiasm, explaining maybe why you're interested in the types of roles you're interested in. LinkedIn, you can also include more portfolio materials. Both of them, you can include like skills and endorsements and accomplishments, Handshake and LinkedIn. I believe you can follow companies on it. LinkedIn's that's a little bit more developed on. And on LinkedIn, you can connect with professional groups. So I encourage you, these are all things that I think are fairly easy to do. So if you've done this, start working on this. If you haven't done this, this is where you should start. Just get that profile photo, your education, your experience, and you can just copy and paste off of your resume. Here's an example of a good looking LinkedIn profile, Allie Baumgartner, alumni from Northwestern, with an about section, and she's got this, she's got her online portfolio linked and her resume linked as well. So just a quick example there. Okay, so I mentioned some resources, and I want to just highlight, or I mentioned the packet, I think is the main thing I just mentioned. But to find resources that are helpful in all these areas, you can go to the ROC, student academics, and then career development on the side, and then helpful online resources. And that resume cover letter packet's really useful. You can find some interview prep work, like software on there called Big Interview. And I also, whoops, okay, my PowerPoint just crashed. I just also encourage you to go on and network via our career communities. Let me show you that real quick. I'm going to share another screen here since my PowerPoint crashed. So LinkedIn, again, you can make a good looking profile here with profile picture and all that. And you can connect with individuals here, but career communities. This is at unwsp.edu/career-communities. And this is a tool where you can connect with alumni and professionals that have indicated that they are willing to connect with Northwestern students. So just make use of this tool. You can find a career community you're interested in, and maybe you want some career advice, maybe you want a resume review, and click that, and then click view members, and then reach out to them. Some other things, helpful, or those resources, employee home, go to student academics, and then on the right-hand side, career development, helpful online resources. And that should take you to right here, the resume and cover letter packet, as well as a bunch of other things. So this is where this packet is going to be super helpful, especially if you are working on cover letters. And so we've got examples of resumes, but then we've got a whole section on cover letters. What is it? How do you write it? Here's the outline, and then some sample cover letters as well. Okay, so again, that is in our helpful online resources. It's this top one underneath resume and cover letter. Awesome. Thank you guys. And I'm going to take some questions here. I'm just going to stop the recording, and then I will take your questions. Thank you all for participating.